Just to give you guys a little bit of an insight, I put a lot of thought into things that I want to cover on the channel. Like, there's a bunch of different topics that come up. Like, you can even just see down there in the byline of the New York Times, you got, okay, what's the latest, what's the trending stuff for today? Post-COVID office. So, what are you going to do with office spaces? A call to racial justice. What the fuck does that even mean? And understanding large container ships. Okay, like I said, I put a lot of thought into what I want to cover. Sometimes there's a big story, I don't have anything to say about it. Like the large container ships one. That is the, whatever, 6-day blockage in the Suez Canal of the container ship that looked like it was parked askewed. Okay, other than like a cheap woman driver joke or the fact that he was drawing a dick out in the ocean, if I wanted to make a 3-second dick joke, I'd just wait for the next time Joe Biden has a public appearance and make it there. There's just nothing really to say about it, okay? And then you got stuff like this. You got Delta CEOs, Coca-Cola CEO coming out and saying voter ID is racist. Like, I try to do a good job of thinking of both sides of the argument before I come to a conclusion. And on this one, whenever the idea of voter ID being racist or bigoted or whatever comes up, I can't logically come to a conclusion where advocating for more lax identification standards is a good thing. Okay? Not like Bernie Sanders with advocating for breadlines because people are getting fed and that's a good thing. No, it's just impossible for me to reconcile. I can't think of it. Like, I understand what they're trying to do, okay? I think that the other side this is when I say they. The more people that have the opportunity to vote, the better it is because they have the intention that everybody who would want to vote wouldn't be hiding anything. They wouldn't be bad people. They wouldn't be ineligible to vote. You shouldn't be putting up that barrier for something that is enshrined in the Constitution. Fair enough. I get it. But at the same time, I don't think that everybody walking around has the best intention from everybody else in the front of their mind. They're thinking about themselves. They might be thinking about their family. If they're more enlightened, if they're better set up, they might be thinking more about their community. But the extent of those people is very, very thin. And at the same time, once you get to people who are at that point, there's a good chance that they have to show their voter ID, not even voter ID, that they have to show their ID to what? Get to work, to drive a vehicle, to sign in at wherever they need to go in order to travel for said job. Like, it's real rich that a CEO of a travel company would say that voter registration is somehow illegal or somehow racist or bigoted when in order for you to sign up or check in for your flight, you have to show your ID. I would love to be able to book a Delta flight without having to verify my identity or even to board, even domestic flights, whatever country you are in. I am sure that you have to provide your boarding pass and at least some form of identification. And if you're flying internationally, you have to bring your passport. Okay. But yeah, let's see what these assholes are fucking barking on about. Maybe we'll get a little bit more of an insight into their thinking. Companies that remained silent last week as Georgia Republicans rushed to pass a law to restrict voting access reversed course on Wednesday. I wonder if this guy was just as upset about lawmakers rushing to, I don't know, push forward an impeachment in like 8 hours or so. Anyways, in the face of mounting outrage from activists, yeah, okay, should listen to a small vocal minority. Customers and coalitions of powerful black executives. Like who? Delta Airlines, Georgia's largest employer, had made only general statements in support of voting rights last week and had declined to take a position on the legislation. That muted response drew fierce criticism, as well as protests at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport and calls for a boycott. Let's see how successful that was. But on Wednesday, Ed Bastian, Delta's chief executive, made a stark reversal. I need to make it crystal clear that the final bill is unacceptable and does not match Delta's values. Sucks to suck, pal. Coca-Cola, another of Georgia's largest companies, and propagators to be less white, let's not forget, which had also declined to take a position on the legislation before it passed, made a similarly worded statement. I want to be crystal clear, but not Crystal Pepsi, right? Coca-Cola Company does not support this legislation as it makes it harder for people to vote, not easier. Why should we be working towards making it easier for people to vote? shouldn't we be worried about the security of elections? But then again, these are the same people that thought that the 2020 election was the most secure one in history, so how can you go ahead and improve upon perfection? Less than a day before the abrupt reversal, a group of prominent black executives called on companies to publicly oppose a wave of similar restrictive voting bills that Republicans were advancing in almost every state. Yeah, sucks to suck, pal. Which group, okay? Let's just take a look. Okay, so this says dozens of the most prominent black business leaders in America are banding together, led by Kenneth Chenault, a so no longer prominent, like he's not actually doing anything, chief executive of American Express, and Kenneth Frazier, chief executive of Merck. Okay, the letter was signed by 72 black executives, including Roger Ferguson, the chief executive, TIAA, Melody Hobson, John Rogers, co-chief executives of Ariel Investments, a banking firm, maybe, I don't know, Robert Smith, Vista Equity Partners, Raymond McGuire, former Citigroup executive who is running for mayor of New York. Okay, so a guy trying to hop on the back of a political issue in order to raise his political profile. And those were the notable ones that they picked out of the 72 there. I don't necessarily think that this is that fucking big of a cause, but this is the cause du jour, right? These are the people that lack their own self-awareness. Like, I know you can probably buy a bottle of Coke without having to flash your papers, but if Delta's going to speak out against it, and if Home Depot, I'm just going to ask you to try to rent a rather large piece of power tool equipment and not show a piece of ID. Is that somehow racist? Is that somehow making it more difficult for people to rent your equipment? I don't know. If you're going to live by those standards, you should be forced to play by them as well. So, but yeah, we'll also see if they're going to start bellyaching about Republicans' push against critical race theory. I can imagine so. This is going to be lovely over the next couple of years to see how much power the states actually have, okay? Because for years and years, it was all about orange man bad, orange man making my life worse, when in actuality, the president has very little say as to the goings-on of your daily life. Sure, they can do stuff with the federal tax rate. Sure, they can do stuff when it comes to interstate travel. But when it comes to your daily life, your governor, your mayor are much more important to that. They can, in fact, fuck with you much more personally. And this right here, by either instituting critical race theory or getting rid of it, is quite a pounding. Republicans in at least 7 states have introduced proposals that would ban the teaching concepts of the quasi-Marxist critical race theory. The measures range from banning government agencies from conducting training in the theory by prohibiting the incorporation of the concepts into school curricula, which is good. No kid should be forced to sit down and listen to how they're bad just for being white. The efforts follow President Joe Biden's reversal of last year's executive order by President Donald Trump that banned federal agencies, contractors, subcontractors, and grantees from instructing their employees to follow critical race tenets. CRT has gradually proliferated in recent decades through academia, government structures, school systems, and the corporate world. It redefines human history as a struggle between oppressors, white people, and the oppressed, everybody else. Yeah, that is about the simplest and most accurate way to describe that. Similar to Marxism, reduction of history as a struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. Of course, it's always the in-group versus out-group. Authoritarians against populists. Like Marxism, it advocates for the destruction of institutions such as Western justice system, free market economy, and orthodox religions while demanding that it be replaced with institutions compliant to CRT ideology. They're also leaving out that it wants to destroy the entire family system. It's more or less the entire goal of critical race theory is to hand yourself over to the state. They know what's best for you. They will show you the way with their teachings, and that somehow you can redeem your whiteness by handing over your privilege or something ridiculous like that. Scholars who have focused on decrypting the jargon of CRT literature have said that the theory's argument about systemic racism is not only riddled with fallacies, but also includes totalitarian elements of coercion and suppression of dissent, such as the rejection of all opposing views as illegitimate. Exactly. Okay. Now, CRT is the culmination of many people's works over the years. It comes with, yes, neo-Marxism, intersectionality, feminism, and just good old-fashioned racism. Now, there are some very interesting elements that come out of the people who buy into this stuff wholeheartedly, okay? You already have your picture in your mind of the people who would follow the ideas espoused from critical race theory and the associated doctrines as well. If they're female, they're normally, 3 to 4 times the size of a regular person, rainbow-colored hair, and when they aren't stuffing pastries in their mouth, they're normally just yelling about the oppression of the patriarchy and white supremacism. Or the men, on the other hand, have their horn-rimmed glasses, their soy beards, mouth agape at the present that their girlfriend would buy them while their other boyfriend comes over and devours the snack tray that said soy boy would have prepared for the bull. And normally, the males are predisposed to several other degenerate behaviors in their day-to-day lives. I don't know why it always seems like that, and we should call it the Rittenhouse rule, that if you were to just, shoot into a crowd, you would probably hit a pedophile. I'm just saying, not every leftist is a pedophile, but every pedophile tends to be a leftist. And why does that always happen? Well, one of the founders, one of the, we can just call them founding fathers of intersectionality, neo-Marxism, critical race theory, Michel Foucault, one of the great French intellectualists, raped 8-year-old children in Tunisia cemeteries. Yep, these are the type of people who are developing the ideas that contribute to the ideas espoused by critical race theory, that are indoctrinating your children, that are indoctrinating government institutions, and the people who are subverting society at large. French postmodernist philosopher Michel Foucault, whose writings have become central to the modern woke ideology, has been accused of sexually abusing children as young as 8 years old while living in Tunisia during the 60s. Yeah, he got rode out on a rail after everybody started to get hip to his ideas in France, and had to relocate in order to avoid persecution. Foucault, a vocal proponent of pedophilia in his writings, yeah, that should have been another tip-off, signed a petition to legalize sex with 13-year-old children in 1977. God, this is France. They should have had some fucking guillotine still kicking around. A contemporary intellectual, Guy Sorman, told Britain's The Sunday Times that he witnessed Foucault courting young boys during his time in Tunisia when the French philosopher took a philosophy professorship to the University of Tunis. Young children were running after Foucault, saying, "What about me? Take me, take me," Sorman said. That is preying upon younger disadvantaged children. They were 8, 9, 10 years old, and he was throwing money at them and saying, "Let's meet at 10 p.m. at the usual place." He would make love there on their gravestones with young boys. The question of consent wasn't even raised, of course, because he was trying to legalize pedophilia back in the 70s. Sorman said, while he regrets not coming forward with the accusations earlier, the French media was covering up for the philosopher. Oh, they were doing that not just for him, but Jacques Derrida and the likes as well. There were journalists present on the trip, there were many witnesses, but nobody did stories like that in those days. Foucault was the philosopher king. He is a god in France. Of course he is. Despite Foucault's self-professed Marxist leanings, Sorman said that his behavior in real life was indicative of French elitism. Noting that Foucault believed that there were two morals, one for the elite, which was immoral, and one for the people, which should be restrictive. All of this is starting to make sense. The more you learn about history, the more you realize that all of this stuff, and the excessive spending, the putting of big government into everybody's day-to-day life, you realize that the idea that there are the elites and there are the peasants and that there is one set of rules that you can go by, hell, if you have universal background checks on your firearms when you purchase them, if you lie on them, there's like $250,000 worth of fines that you can face, unless, of course, you're the president's son. Or if you want to sue over voting machines, who knows, on one side you can be trying to usurp our democracy, but then if you're doing it for the other side, well, you're just making sure that everything is all right and on the up and up. Mark Elias did that. The examples are endless, but this is just history repeating itself, and then it takes good people to step up and call them out whenever you see them. Let's finish this one. France is still not a democracy. We had the revolution, proclaimed a republic, but they're still an aristocracy. It's an intelligentsia, and it has a special status. Anything goes, Sorman said, suggesting that now the world is suddenly changing. He is correct. Unfortunately, it's leaning a lot towards Foucault, not in numbers, but in influence. The people who are in the positions of power adhere to his and his friends' ideology. The woke, postmodernist, critical race theory loving intersectionalists. The accusations have sent shockwaves to fellow pedophiles. Throughout academic circles, with Cambridge University reader in historical geography. What a worthless title. Philip Howell saying, there is a big potential for that to have an impact on him. Foucault is interested in sexuality and wrote about it, but child abuse is another thing. And he quickly swept the interviewer out of the office. The most prominent biography of the philosopher, the passionate, this has got to be disturbing read, of Michel Foucault, by James Miller, noted that Foucault expressed interest in the sadomasochism displayed in American homosexuality bathhouses. However, the book made no mention of alleged pedophilia in Tunisia. Foucault was one of the first openly gay public figures in the 20th century, dying of AIDS. Let's hear it for AIDS. Woo! At the age of 57 in 84. Good. Couldn't have happened to a nicer pedophile. Bigger sack of shit. Fuck him and fuck his ideology. There has been nothing worse to come out of the 20th century, and I know wholeheartedly about the horrors of socialism and communism than that of the neo-Marxists, because they purport and they are trying to bring about a second wave that will lead to even more bloodshed, even more destruction than ever thought possible, and there are far too many willing allies of pedophiles like Foucault out there. And thank God for people like Ron DeSantis. And thank God for people like the CEOs of Delta and Coca-Cola for making their arrogance, making their elitism a lot more public and easier to identify. Because God knows I won't fly Delta whenever I have the opportunity to leave the country again. Coca-Cola, they can go fuck themselves. Won't be purchasing any Coke products anytime soon. But who knows? Maybe NAMBLA's probably got a few more books that they can add to their reading list. But yeah, this story's been percolating for a couple of days. And being abreast to the ideas of Foucault and Derrida, thanks to Dr. Jordan Peterson, this is not too much of a surprise, really. But it really does give a good insight as to why all the wokesters, if given enough time, turn out to be degenerates on some level or another. And with that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.